Enchanted. Oh, I don't know, Laureus. I think your feelings on this are very valid. It was a little unnerving being the focus of the creature's dozen or so little eyes as it spoke, but its voice sounded very sincere. Laureus the Elder, arbiter of the Spire of the Twilight Sun, was still not entirely comfortable with talking to a golden spider the size of a sheep, especially given it was on matters of the heart. But when the rest of your spire thinks you're being foolish, you need to look in unexpected places for advice and support.
So you don't think I should apologise and get him a gift?
The rest of the spire seemed convinced he was in the wrong and needed to make amends.
Megara suggested I could get him a nice pen, or maybe even commission Alba to make him a circle of falling snow.
Oh, no. That breathy voice, like silk gliding over steel. No, I don't think he'd want anything like that. Best for you to just stick with your studies for now. This ritual has the highest projected magnitude I've ever seen. I'm sure he'll come around to your way of thinking eventually. Focus on what's important, Laureus. The great work. Laureus felt a lot better, and thanked the giant golden spider for listening and giving him good advice. After he left, the spider chittered to itself softly for a few moments, and then quickly climbed back up the interior of the tower, so it could sit and watch the blinking lights in peace. Overview. With the winter solstice fast approaching, there are a number of magical matters that might be of interest to the magicians of the Empire. The Imperial Conclave, of course, has undergone some significant changes, the impact of which will be felt most strongly at the first actual meeting since they took place. There are also a number of pressing matters that might be of particular concern to the Imperial Conclave. A spreading blight in Madruga, for example. The matter of odd fruit gathered in Broceliande during the daring adventure there, as well as a number of developments following certain declarations at the autumn equinox. The thirsty grasses. A slowly spreading blight threatens the great grasses in Madruga. The Freeborn Assembly has called for help. The Conclave is the best chance to find a solution. During the storms that battered the Empire in the lead-up to the autumn equinox, one area of the Empire was almost entirely untouched. The Great Grasses in Madruga is a sweeping, fertile plain known for a surfeit of closed-mouthed freeborn farmers and the great herds of cows, sheep, gores, and more niche herd animals that they tend. While the grasslands were lashed by rain just like the rest of the Empire, within a week of the last downpour, the plains were as dry as a bone, drier even than they'd been before the storms. The National Assembly of the Brass Coast upheld a statement of principle from Rafael y Zamora y Riqueza, urging people travelling the Great Grasses to be careful, to share what they've learnt, and identifying the House of Aldea to Tutamen as the epicentre of the problem. Farmers shrugged and muttered about the residual effects of the rain, but then Donal y Gracina y Riqueza, Demiro of a small farming family, noticed that his farm was not enjoying any of the benefits mentioned as attendant on the tempest. After speaking with several of his neighbours, he discovered that none of them were seeing any magical renewal of their farm or herb garden either. It's as if, he says with eerie foresight, something is consuming the spring magic. A fortnight before the autumn equinox, the situation suddenly worsened. The grasses started to die, withering away as if in the grip of a terrible drought. All life began to leach from the soil, turning it to an ashy sand. The centre of the spreading wasteland is indeed the lands of the Aldea de Tutamen, a very old, very insular freeborn family who can evidently trace their roots back to the exodus from Highguard and beyond. Travellers, urged to share what they learnt by the Assembly, confirmed reports of horrific, desiccated creatures, human in shape, but not in appetite, inhabiting the area of wasteland that used to be the fertile farmland. These creatures seem similar to the husks created by winter magic, or perhaps the virus lunare poison. But rather than meat, they're drawn to water, especially the water that's found within living beings. They don't seem to want to leave the area of wasteland they currently occupy. but that area of desert is slowly growing. The desiccated near desert is growing slowly, but it is growing. Alerted by Rafael Izamora Irakeza, several Hakima have visited the area to confer with their local colleagues and examine the wasteland. Through divination, they've determined that the desert is being caused by winter magic, but not the result of a ritual as such. The only thing that seems to slow its progress down is water, ideally water infused with the power of spring magic. The Hakima of the Great Grasses are doing their best to try to understand the problem, but there's a limit to what they can achieve. They are very concerned that if it's left untouched, the desert will not only devour the Great Grasses, but potentially threatens the whole of Madruga. That's the immediate problem that needs addressing. Help is needed. Freeborn Hakima ask for Imperial magicians to bring spring-infused rain to Madruga to help slow the spread of the blight. The Conclave could choose an order to take charge of investigating the situation. Several Eternals might also be able to offer assistance. The local Hakima don't have the resources to do the kind of magic that's needed. They need a territory-wide enchantment, or curse, of spring magic that brings rains or raise waters. Obviously, foam and spittle of the furious sea will work, as will thunderous deluge, but both rituals have dreadful side effects. More useful, perhaps, would be Regrow the Land's Heart, which infuses a territory with magical waters specifically intended to heal the land and soil. The Hakima of the Great Grasses also asked the Conclave to consider asking one of the Orders to get involved, to find out what's going on and how to put a stop to it before it gets worse. A suitably worded declaration of concord could ask the magicians of a specific order to come to Madruga to explore the phenomenon and hopefully find a solution that, so far, evades the Hakima. This will be most successful if a single order is chosen. The potential advantage comes as much from the organisation that an order can bring to bear as anything else. Asking all Imperial magicians or magicians from multiple orders to work together will reduce their effectiveness in combating this problem. There is also talk of perhaps asking Ossagran if that Eternal can offer aid, or knows more about what's going on. Other Hakima wonder if the Eternals of the Winter Realm might have some idea of what's happening in Madruga. Regardless, it seems clear that whatever is going on is a problem for the Imperial Conclave. Of peculiar fruit. Explorers in Broceliande have returned with magical chaos fruit. The fruit function in a similar manner to potions, but with more unpredictable effects. Fruit could also be cultivated with the correct magical ritual. Following the daring expedition into Broceliande, a number of people emerged from the Valorn-haunted woods with some very strange treasure indeed. Dubbed chaos fruits, they possess magic as unpredictable as their appearance. There are stories of fleshy flowers whose juice focuses the perception of spring magic to allow a magician to wield powerful rituals, misshapen fruits whose rind grants anyone brave enough to eat it a burst of unparalleled endurance, glutinous juices and sap that provide miraculous healing, delicate berries that induce a narcotic stupor, and many more. Very quickly, those exploring the fruit determined that the physical appearance is no guide to the effects that one will have, that texture, scent, and taste are more important than colour or shape. On an out-of-character note, we've done this intentionally so that players can fizz-rep their chaos fruit with whatever fruit or fruit-adjacent thing they can lay their hands on, rather than mandating, for example, that a fruit be yellow or banana-shaped. It's quickly ascertained that these are simply fruit. There are no extractable magical essences within them. Distillation of diverse parts simply destroys the fruit, leaving only a worthless mashed pulp behind. The fruit can be consumed like, well, any other fruit. This unleashes their magic in the same way that a potion provides its benefits to the one who eats it. Out of character note, all the normal rules for consuming a potion apply, but that's not the only way they might be used. Cultivation. A forest can be prepared to grow chaos fruit, It requires 5 different fruit and the ritual rampant growth. Any forest that's been prepared in this manner will produce a single chaos fruit, but will produce 2 less measures every season. Due to the nature of chaos fruits, this option will only be available until the end of the spring equinox 385 YE. Whilst some suggested farms or herb gardens might be the best option, after some limited testing, it's clear that the fruits grow best among the forests of the Empire. There needs to be a certain wildness to the trees, it seems, that an orchard or well-tended vineyard simply does not possess. Whether it is due to the trees present in all forests, or that the magic of spring that is infused in each of the fruits is anathema to the order imposed on the land by farms and horticulture of herb gardens, or simply that it is the ritual rampant growth that is the necessary ingredient, the end result is the same. To prepare a forest to produce chaos fruit, the ritual rampant growth must be cast, using 5 different chaos fruit as the focus. The fruit are consumed in the process. Only an unopened chaos fruit calamity can be used in this way, and the description must be different for each one. The ritual will have its normal effects, but in addition, the forest will permanently produce 2 fewer measures of magical material, and instead produce 1 random chaos fruit each event. The fruit to be used must be reasonably fresh, and must be one plucked directly from an area of Valorn. As such, this method can only be employed during the winter solstice 384 and the spring equinox 385, and can't be done using any fruit gathered from a forest after the winter solstice. Probably not Valorn. The chaos fruits are not Valorn seeds and are not interdicted by the Imperial Conclave. Though Valorn seeds are a subject to a declaration of interdiction, these fruit don't seem to be that. These appear to simply be fruit infused with a powerful resonance of chaotic spring magic. However, while they're likely to be safe to eat, it's not impossible that cultivating them might lead to some unforeseen side effects, months, years, or even decades down the line. Cautious horticulturalists suggest it might be dangerous to cultivate their growth in a forest in Liathavin, Broceliande, Herkinia, or Theronin due to the presence of an active Valorn there. Other naysayers wonder if the wicked eternal Yor Nagra might be involved in their creation, meaning that in theory they should also be interdicted. In practice, there appears to be no immediate threat from cultivating these fruit. But the Conclave has the power to interdict the magical practice of cultivating chaos fruit, should they choose to do so. The existence of the fruit and their somewhat unpredictable results has also led to a small but vocal number of gourmands to demand that one of the Empire's magical colleges codify a ritual for divining what will happen to me if I consume this. Almost immediately, rival groups shout them down, claiming that such a ritual would remove most of the fun that comes from putting unidentified food, drink, and other consumables in one's mouth. On Kayla's gift, Conclave has reassured the Synod that the gift of Kayla is not a threat to Imperial souls, and urges them to let people know that. During the autumn equinox, the Conclave urged the Imperial Synod to reassure the people of the Empire that the gift of Kayla represents no magical threat to their soul. The gift is a magical power granted to every Imperial citizen by the Eternal of Ending, allowing them to avoid capture and torment by the Druge by choosing to die instead. When invoked by anyone who's been captured by the Druge or sees no hope of escape, it reduces the person to ashes in a painless moment, not even leaving a body behind for the orcs to defile. The only drawback is that accepting the gift means that anyone who takes advantage of it cannot be contacted with whispers through the Black Gate, which has made some priests understandably nervous. The Imperial Synod has not yet acted on this advice, so eyes turn naturally to the sevenfold path to pass on the Conclave's reassurance, and to urge the Synod to in turn reassure the people of the Empire that, while tragic, the gift is safe to use, and potentially preferable to a painful lifetime of torture at the hands of the Malamorks. There's also some speculation that this power might be effective at ending the threat of tormented souls that the Druge create from captured Imperial heroes. Perhaps if they could be made aware of it in some fashion, they might see a way out of their endless torment. A matter of fanes. A proposal has been made to allow the arcane architect to produce fanes. This would allow the conclave to have a say in the creation of fanes without needing to use precious declarations of concord. Also during the autumn equinox, the conclave agreed with Alexander Novosad that the Senate should not commission the construction of any fane without the support of a suitably worded declaration from the conclave. The fane is a new discovery, and to have an effect, control must be ceded to the Eternal it is built for. The entity then takes possession of the fane and the regio where it is built. At the moment, the conclave's advice is entirely that, advisory. The Senate could, however, choose to follow its suggestion. The Arcane Architect is a title appointed by the Imperial Conclave, charged with building mana structures. The fane is similar to a mana structure and could easily fall within the remit of the Architect. There is a proposal that the Senate consider amending their powers to allow them to commission a fane, as well as to commission sinecures, great works, and ministries. This would potentially place the construction of fanes under the guidance of the Conclave. The Senate would still need to cede the structure once built to an Eternal, or it would simply be an expensive folly. They could, of course, devolve that power to the Arcane Architect if they wished, as part of the same amendment, and specifically for use only with the construction of a fane, placing control of the new structures entirely in Conclave hands, where they arguably belong. But few members of the Celestial Arch think that's likely to happen any time soon. Black Frost and Bonds. The Conclave have requested the aid of the Eternal Tharim in protecting the Hall of Worlds. Tharim has agreed to guard the hall against heralds, provided certain requirements are met. Enchantress Claudia Vokalova Remis, the Imperial Necromancer, and an acknowledged consummate mistress of winter magic, presented a declaration of concord to the Conclave relating to a potential offer from the Eternal Tharim. The proposal is that Tharim might use his own mastery of certain aspects of winter law, specifically oaths and wards, and the power of chains and binding to make it harder for heralds, especially heralds of Eternals who are under enmity, to enter the Hall of Worlds. Tharim has let it be known, via his heralds, that he's more than happy to assist his friends in the Conclave with this matter. There is a price, however. Firstly, he will need a permanent presence in the Hall of Worlds. He asks that Conclave create an image of him, a tapestry, portrait, a statue, an abstract piece of work that captures his essence, whatever seems most appropriate, to be positioned in the Hall of Worlds. It will need to be in a position of honour and prominent enough that it's visible from every part of the hall. Once that is done, Conclave need merely support a declaration of concord inviting him to protect them, and he will send a fraction of his essence toward the Hall of Worlds. As long as Tharim and the Conclave remain good friends, and as long as the image remains undefaced, it will become impossible for the Heralds of Eternals under enmity to enter the Hall of Worlds without an explicit invitation, just as it is in the wider Empire. And the Heralds of Neutral Eternals will not be able to take more than 3 steps into the Hall of Worlds without verbal permission from an Imperial magician. The Heralds of Eternals with amity, such as Tharim, would be unaffected. The Bound King notes that unfortunately a plenipotentiary would still allow Heralds of Eternals under enmity, or who are not good friends with the Conclave, like Tharim is, to enter the Hall of Worlds, but that's a matter for the Archmages to worry about. Gazers and Star. The Spire of the Seventh Mist have requested access to create a base of operations at the Brilliant Star. Providing permission would require a Senate motion, 10 thrones, and would permanently reduce the income of the seat by 4 wains of mithril a season. The Brilliant Star in Redout is a mithril mine known for its eerily phosphorescent walls. Scholars claim that exposure to the light promotes reasoned thought and eases the understanding of difficult theoretical principles, not only in magic but in all advanced disciplines, including mathematics and natural philosophy. Unfortunately, the tunnels are also part of an active mine, and don't welcome casual visitors who invariably get in the way, especially given the light is apparently at its strongest around deposits of mithril that the miners insist on digging out of the ground. A group of students at the Spire of the Seventh Mist, a haven for seers and stargazers, have either been making a nuisance of themselves at the mine, or trying to learn more about its affinity for day magic, depending on who you ask. In order to go further with their research, they want to set up a permanent base of operations within some of the tunnels. They have made a promise to stay out of the way of the workers of the mines, but as previously mentioned, this is not likely to be the case in practice. They will want access to the areas where the workers are busiest, simply because that's where all the mithril is. They're not the first group to petition for privileged access to the active mithril mine. Over the centuries, attempts to integrate scholarship and mining have led to an unfortunate number of accidents, and both would-be scholars and miners alike have paid a tragic price. The leader of the students, Verax of the Seventh Mist, believes that if they're allowed to establish a presence in the mines, they will be able to greatly enhance the ability of the Doyen of the Spires to codify rituals that involve day magic. Granting the Seventh Mist students access to the mine will require a Senate motion and reduce the production of the mine by 4 wains of mithril each season. After 3 months, however, it will improve the ability of the Doyen of the Spires to codify rituals using day magic by another 5 ranks each season. The civil service note that if the Senate go ahead with this, an amount of money paid by Lumi of the Wintermark will be remitted to them, based on the lower production they expected when they paid for the seat. Verax knows that this will be a major ask for the Senate and has asked that the Conclave, and especially the Order of the Unfettered Mind, to which most of the students belong, to throw their support behind their ambitious project. The Spire of the Seventh Mist has gone so far as to say that if Conclave raises a declaration of concord urging Imperial Senate to support the students' request, they will show their gratitude by committing to provide 3 ingots of Welt silver each season to the vaults of the Order most responsible for securing this support, to be delivered starting at the spring equinox and assigned by a declaration of endowment. Glow in the dark. There is an ongoing conjunction of the key and the lock that is creating unpredictable minor effects. Creatures that appear to be tulpas of the key and lock appear with increasing frequency as the winter solstice approaches. There's something odd going on with the key and the lock. The 2 constellations, representing the magical laws of things are revealed and things can be hidden, seem to almost be revolving round each other, at least in a metaphysical sense. There's been a number of odd effects as a consequence, not least because the constellations have a reputation for creating esoteric or unpredictable effects, especially when they're in conjunction with each other. The recent deluge was made possible by a conjunction involving the lock, the fountain, and the stallion, but this ongoing peculiar magical effect is by no means restricted to large-scale magic. There have been reports of odd figures appearing at Anvil, for example, generally when one or both of the constellation is high in the sky. Some magicians believe they are wild tulpas, spawned from the metaphysical matter of the 2 constellations and given form in some fashion via the Imperial Regio. As the winter solstice draws nearer, reports of these odd figures, often swathed in black and hooded, have been increasing in frequency. They're often accompanied by odd snatches of music, and those who interact with them report that they're capable of exerting an unsettling influence. What they want, if a tulpa can truly be said to want anything, isn't clear. Most likely, given the way things work, the winter solstice will prove to be the ideal time to try and find out more. There's also been a few odd magical effects reported. Some divinations have been going odd, not providing false or incorrect results, or even misleading ones, just odd. One mystic reports that for an entire night between sunset and sunrise, every casting of detect magic they attempted was accompanied by music and shimmering fields of light that she needed to interpret to gain the useful information. A coven in the Marches report an incident where their casting of Wisdom of the Balanced Blade left them all with an enduring urge to sing rather than speak, and that lasted for a very unsettling hour or so. A freeborn diviner recounts an astonishing incident where a signs and portents ritual provided a crystal clear warning that their house was going to burn down, and they were able to prevent it doing so. These incidents seem reasonably rare, but as with the sighting of the tulpa, if they are tulpa, increase in frequency as the solstice approaches. Participation. If you perform a divination ritual or use a spell such as Detect Magic or Operate Portal to gather information, or employ the insight ceremony, you're free to roleplay that the information you receive comes to you via an unexpected sense, or requires additional interpretation, or is remarkably clear. Rituals in Imperial lore that are likely to be affected include the following: an echo of life's remains, bright lantern of Ophis, clear lens of the eternal river, dreams in the witch house, eye of the high places, eyes of the soul's past, eyes of the sun and moon, Hakima's glass, hand of the maker, secrets of the soul's desire, shadowed glass of sung, signs importance, skein of years, ties that bind, and wisdom of the balanced blade. Some rituals where profound decisions provides information may also be affected by this peculiar effect. Again, the information will not be wrong or intentionally misleading, but it might be delivered in an odd way, or include unexpected side effects as a result of the ongoing conjunction. Sorcery and the crimes of de Govin. 2 members of House de Govin have been declared sorcerers by the Conclave. The magistrates ask that the 2 de Govin visit the hub so they can ensure they are aware of the restrictions on their behaviour. During the autumn equinox, the Imperial Conclave declared Lady Rosalind de Govin and Lord Sidlaw Edric Charge de Govin to be sorcerers. These charges, brought by Bryce Griffensong, who, at the time, was apparently girded as the late Osran Ivarovich Severian of House Orzel, accused them of deliberately provoking the Eternal Hayak. A 3rd member of House de Govin, Lady Celine Dalba, was also accused, but the Conclave did not uphold the charges against them. The magistrates have requested that the de Govin sorcerers visit the hub on Friday evening, so that they can ensure they are aware of the restrictions that their new status places on their behaviour. Given the recent changes to the Conclave, it's been suggested that the other sorcerers believed to be active at Anvil may wish to do the same, so that there's no risk of misunderstandings later. They include the highborn Ephrael, Jaelus, and Keritoth of Zephaniah's Lament, the Wintermark magician Etheric the Grounded, and the Dornish René du Loir. Whispering Gate. During the winter solstice, it will be possible to perform Whispers Through the Black Gate between 8:30 and 9:30 at night. The current Imperial Necromancer is Enchantress Claudia Vokulova Remis. The Black Gate can be opened to allow Masters of Winter Magic to commune with the spirits of the dead. For reasons that have never been adequately explained, the gate can only be opened at twilight, when it's neither quite day nor quite night. Imperial magicians prognosticate that this means, during the winter solstice, the ritual can be performed between the hours of 8:30 and 9:30 in the evening. This information is, of course, of particular relevance to the Imperial Necromancer, given their powers and responsibilities. COVID restrictions on Whispers Through the Black Gate. We often have players come to the makeup department for help with wounds and lineage trappings when they're being the subject of a Whispers Through the Black Gate. Due to COVID restrictions around providing makeup for players at this event, we won't be able to assist them with this. Players will have to do any makeup themselves using their own supplies in a space that's not our makeup area. Strongholds and Shrouds. Magical fortifications have been raised in Mornwald, Ossium, Zenith, and Calavesa. There are shrouds over the territories of Sarvos, Ossium, Zenith, and the Barrens. During the autumn equinox, magical fortifications were raised by Imperial magicians across the Empire. The dripping echoes of the fen rose in the Drownbark Forest in Ossium, there to support the winter sun if the Druge had tried to claim the land once again. Likewise, in cold, dank Calavesa, the mists coiled and the fog lay heavy over Calavesa Marsh, Rundhole Marsh, and West Marsh. 3 great walls of thicket and burr were summoned from the Spring Realm in Alderley, Echofell, and Lustri. Magical penumbral veils still hang over the Varushkan territory of Ossium, the Druge territory of the Barrens, the Urizen territory of Zenith, and the League territory of Sarvos. Rituals that try to divine information about or scry into these territories will first need to overcome the power of the veil, and the only way to prematurely remove these shrouds is through use of piercing light of revelation. There may be other veils in place. News of shrouds only comes from places where the Empire has a notable presence. Urizen lore. The General Assembly of the Synod passed a statement of principle, restating their stance in regards to Lucidians. This satisfies the request from the Hall of the Newborn Sun to endorse Lucidianism as a valid school of following the way. The rituals in the Book of the Restless Spirit have been added to Urizen lore. The Caestors and Illuminates of the Hall of the Newborn Sun discussed whether Judgment 27 of the Autumn Equinox satisfied the request they made a year ago. After a solid week of debate, they reached the decision that it does, and the rituals in the Book of the Restless Spirit, Silence of the Bronze Bell, Resolution of Falling Stars, A Light That Moves, and Net of Gossamer Chains have all been added to Urizen lore. But those were not the only rituals that were added to Urizen lore this season, and you can find out more about those in the Wind of Fortune, Shake It Off.